Are you interested in seeing a few more Halloween type decorations? Well, stay tuned. Hi, my name is Leslie and welcome to Happy Tuesday, where we do crafts and DIYs and home decor and more. Today I have for you 5 super cute projects that are sure to add a boo to your Halloween. Now don't forget to stick around till the very end and I'll have a hint on one of next week's projects. So let's get started. And let's take a quick sneak peek into all 5 of today's projects. Get ready, we are going to start with project number 1. I think this witch hat is just so sweet. So I am going to use one of these cones from the Dollar Tree. You can find them in the kids section. They come in a pair of 2. So you could make a hat for you and a hat to share. And we are going to take some scissors and cut off the outside edge and just leave us with the smooth cone. And then I'm going to take my heat tool and heat up that glue just a little bit so that I can use my little spatula from the Dollar Tree to get this little bat and the eek off, and I will save them to use on another project. And once I've gotten those both removed, I'm going to use my handy dandy little nail file there and just sand off any of the excess glue. Now I'm going to use some black chalk paint. This is ink by Waverly, and I am going to fully cover that cone and that wood round. And once I've got that all done, I'm going to take a bead of hot glue and run it around the outside edge of that cone and place it right there in the center of my round. Now obviously this is not a hat that you can wear, but it is one that will make a sweet centerpiece decor. Now, I am going to use some cheesecloth that I bought at Walmart, but for this step here, you could either use a really cheap muslin, or you could use the Dollar Tree little white tea towels and cut those up, or you could just use paper mache. And so I'm going to cut a good width of this cheesecloth and separate it all out, and that will be what I use for my base to get started. The next step that we are going to do is take some Elmer's school glue or whatever school glue that you have that you can buy at the Dollar Tree, and some water, and we're going to mix it about 50-50. You could also use Mod Podge if you wanted instead. But I find this is a cheaper alternative. And we're going to get our cheesecloth all wet there and wring it out just a little bit. And then we're going to spread it along the round and the cone and just get our witch's hat base. And then I'm going to cut just little thin slices, and we are going to get those wet and wrap those around, and we'll continue this process until we get the entire witch's hat covered. Now if you want to use paper mache, you could just use old newspapers and get those wet. The look that I'm going for is just kind of a rusticy old hat, you know, something that maybe the material is kind of sloughed down on and looks kind of a cross between that vintage and maybe Americana, not Americana, what is that other look? Primitive, kind of that primitive kind of look, you know, so you don't have to get too fussy with it, and it doesn't have to be too fancy, it doesn't have to be in any kind of ordered kind of way. Just, you know, willy-nilly throw those pieces of cheesecloth on there until you get the whole thing wrapped. And I like these kind of projects because it doesn't have to be perfect, and the more imperfect it is, the better it looks, I think. So I'm just going to continue, and I cut some a little bit more narrow and some a little bit wider, and just continue to wrap that around. And it doesn't even matter if you poke your finger and make a hole in the cheesecloth, because you're just going to continue wrapping it. And once I've gotten that whole cone done, then I am going to give my base kind of just a little outside wrap. Now because it's cheesecloth, cheesecloth is so thin, it'll be fine to have one tiny little layer up underneath the wooden hat. Now, I noticed it was starting to dry out a little bit where I started at first, so I threw a little water on there, and then we are going to just continue getting a little bit of that around the outside border. I wanted that whole hat to be covered so that when we paint it, it will all have that unique textured look to it. Now, if you can't find those plastic cones at the Dollar Tree, you could use the paper mache tree cones that you can find at Hobby Lobby, or you could use some of those styrofoam tree shapes. Anyhow, once you've got all that done and it is set to your liking, then I took some extra thick pieces and kind of wrapped them and gave my hat a little kind of lean-to side piece up at the top just to give it a little bit more character. And I just kept wrapping that until I had it the way I wanted it to look. The other thing, if you can't find the wood rounds, is you could use one of the Dollar Tree pizza pans. And if you do find those cones, you could use the extra one for a cornucopia. And I'm just going to use some flat black spray paint, and I gave it all a good coat to make sure that it was coated thoroughly. Now here's one of those Dollar Tree tea towels, and I'm going to use it as a little bit of a ribbon, and just tore a strip along the outside edge, bottom edge, I guess, of that cone. And then I grabbed my handy dandy little brown ink pad, and I just kind of roughed it up a little bit, gave it kind of a vintage rustic kind of look, and then grabbed a few florals and glued those all together and tucked those inside. You can do whatever you'd like here. You could do a whole base of florals and really make it a cute little centerpiece, or you could do just like I did and just a little bit of floral just to give it a quick whimsy look. And I glued that in, and that's all there is to it. And I just love the way this little witch's hat turned out. What do you think? Isn't it so adorable? And the texture, I think, just makes it. Now the cool thing with this is you can add whatever florals or print or fabric add to your decor and make it customized to you. And that will bring us to project number 2. I have to say, this is probably my favorite. And when I got started with this project, it was actually going to be a scarecrow. You can see I've got my fabric over there, and I've got some burlap. But once I got that 2x4 scrap piece painted black, I decided that I wanted to use some more of that muslin. And so I grabbed the package and I unrolled, I'm going to say probably about 3 feet of it. And that's what I'm going to use. And then I found a scrap piece of burlap, and I'm going to cut that into a rectangle, and I am going to make a little bow. We're going to make a girl mummy. So I took that little piece and I cut it the size as I wanted it, and then I'm going to grab a little piece of jute twine to tie around it and give it a little bead of hot glue there on the edge to hold it together. And then we will ruffle it up with our piece of twine and make it into a little twine and burlap bow. And I just think it's so stinking cute and super easy. No skill required here. And then after I got that tied nice and tightly, I'm going to trim those extra pieces off. And then I found some wooden eggs that I had in my craft supplies left over from Easter. And since I couldn't find any round wooden pieces that were the size I wanted, I'm going to use those to make the eyes. Now I cut about 3 feet of that fabric there, the cheesecloth, and I am taking my brown ink pad, and I'm just going all over inside and out of that cheesecloth there and giving it a good old rustic up, been sitting in the dirt kind of look. And I suppose if you don't have a brown ink pad, or you don't want to use maybe some antique wax or something, that you could just take it out in the dirt and rough it up. And then I grabbed some black chalk paint once those eyes had dried, and we are going to make some little eyeballs. And again, you don't have to get too fussy with it. I have a detail brush, but not a fine detail brush. And I'm just going to keep going around and around until I get that circle eyeball the way I want it, the size and shape I want it. And then I'm going to take some more of that black ink chalk paint, and we are going to draw another circle. This one's going to be slightly smaller on the other eyeball, and kind of get that the size and shape we want it. And then I'll grab a fine detail brush with a teensy bit of white on it, and we'll add just a highlight into the white eyeball. And look at those, aren't those cute? And now we are going to take that cheesecloth and we're going to wrap it around the top, and we're not going to be too fussy with it. And we are just going to wrap it around and around, kind of fold it over so you can see a little bit of the black, but not all of the black underneath it. And once I've got that done, then I am going to just unwrap just a little bit just to give it the shape that I want. And then we'll take the final edges right there and add a dab of hot glue to kind of hold that in place. And another little dab of hot glue, and that part will be done. And then all we've got to do is slide our eyeballs inside that first layer and glue those in and glue on our bow, and this project is complete. Now, if you don't have the little wooden eggs, you could use wooden circles or even a piece of cardboard to make your eyeballs. And here she is, all beautiful and in her glory. I just love her, and it was a really quick and easy project. What do you think? Let me know below. I just wanted to interrupt for a second and say thank you to all my loyal subscribers that come back and hang out with me each week. If you're new here, I would ask you to consider hitting that subscribe button and clicking the bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a video. Don't forget to give today's projects a thumbs up. All right, let's get back to it. And that will bring us to project number 3. I think these crows turned out so cute. And it was a really cheap craft to make. So we have 3 sheets of felt that I got at Michael's. They were 25 cents each. And we are going to fold the blue into thirds and into half, and the thirds are going to be 3 pieces for 2 of the crows, and then we are going to cut the last piece out of that second piece of the blue felt. Now this is kind of a royal blue. You could do this with any colors you wanted. And so we've got our 4 pieces for the 2 tall. We're going to make a mama and a papa and a baby. And at first I kind of gave him a squared off head, and I'm going to leave the daddy that way, but we will shape down the mama to more of a pointy head before this is all said and done. And I just use that 1 scrap to trim up all the rest, and that will be those 4 pieces. And then this wider half a piece, we are going to fold it in half and then in half again, and we are going to make a little baby crow out of this. So we'll kind of trim that around, and then I decided maybe it needed a little bit more rounding off, and I went at it with my liquid stitch. And normally I love this stuff for fabric projects, but it did not like the felt, and I stuck it on there and it was not going to stick. So don't be a Leslie and use a liquid stitch. You can use hot glue, or I've got my fabric hot glue, and that's what I'm going to use for this project. So once we've gotten those two pieces cut, there's my fabric hot glue. I'm going to grab a little bit of this twine and make 3 little pieces, and I'm going to do that 3 times, and we're going to use that for their little hair. And then I am going to cut beaks out of this gold color, and I actually did cut them longer than I probably should have, although it looked really cute when I sewed the beak on to the crow. It didn't look so cute when I filled them all up with stuffing and beans. And so again, don't be a Leslie and cut yours a little bit shorter so that you can see the whole beak from the front whenever you stuff and fill your crows. So I rounded off the top and then took a little, folded it in half and took a little kind of diagonal cut out of the bottom, and then I'm using buttons for eyes. I just went into my button scraps and found three sets of buttons that all matched. And then for our beak for our little crow, we're going to obviously make that smaller, and I'm going to make it smaller yet. So I somehow did not get that first part filmed, but what I did is I took embroidery floss and I doubled it over and made a knot in the bottom, and we're going to do kind of like sort of a blanket stitch, but not the whole blanket stitch. So we're just going to come in at the top on the outside edge and then pull it in towards the middle, and then we'll go the opposite way in towards the middle and out of the top edge. And so we're just going to do a back and forth stitch to stitch this whole beak on, and we did that for all 3 of the crows. So you're just going to come again in through the back, and this is just a simple threading needle. It's not anything fancy, or an embroidery needle. It doesn't have to be anything big because the 2 pieces of felt aren't very thick. So we're going to go in through the middle and out through the back, and then out through the middle and in through the back, and we're just going to keep going back and forth like that until we get the entire beak on. Now you could glue him on, or glue the beak on with some fabric glue or fabric hot glue or just hot glue, but I just liked this extra look of the stitch, and so I made the stitch all the way around. So we're just going to continue back and forth, and when you run out of thread, then you'll just secure it in the back, and then run your needle back through the little hole you just made, and that'll make it a secure knot, and trim that off. And I'm just going to thread another piece, and I will show you again how we're going to just back and forth stitch. So we're just going to make a knot here so that it doesn't come through, and I double knot it because felt does allow a single knot to come through. So I'm just going to start in the middle of that bottom point of the beak and run it down the point, and then we're going to come in through the outside edge and just go back and forth, in through the middle, out through the edge. Anyway, I just liked the look of the stitch on the beak rather than just gluing it on. Now you could probably accomplish the same thing if you wanted to write on it with a fabric marker or something like that instead of actually doing the stitch. Or you could maybe even use a Sharpie marker and just make the lines and then glue it on, and that might save you some time. And then for the buttons, I'm also going to sew those on. So I used a blue colored thread that matched the royal blue of my
the felt for the crow, and then for the eyes, I'm using a black embroidery thread. And I actually went over through the holes, I think 3 times to secure them down. So in the hole, out the hole, and then back and forth until those are secure. And it kind of gave it more of a full look. So it's going to look like kind of like a slit in the eyeball. And once we've gotten all that done, then we are going to take our little twine hair, and I kind of frayed that out a little bit, and then we're going to use our hot glue and glue around the edges. Now I'm going to start at the top because you want to fill it from the top going down. The little one over there I filled going from the bottom up, so I closed him in at the bottom and then filled him with beans first, and that didn't work very well. So don't do that. And so we're going to fill him from the top and get a good amount of filling in there because you want him to be able to stand up. Now, if you don't care if he stands up or not, then, you know, you could do whatever amount of filling you want to use. Now I've got leftover filling that I've had in my craft stash for decades, honestly, and I'm just getting that all used up. But if you don't have any of that, you can just use an old pillow and use fluffing from that. Or you could just fill them completely full of beans, and that might work too. So I got a lot of stuffing in there and then filled in some beans, and then I'm going to glue up part of it so that I can kind of really shove those beans down. I wanted mine to be able to stand up. And so I'm going to continue with that until I get all the beans that I want, and then we'll close up the little hole that's left with some more of that hot glue and stand him up. And look at him just standing over there, but you can see from both of them, and that's where I trimmed off the girl so that she would have a tighter look on her, and then I put a bow on her. But you can see I substantially trimmed down their beaks and refixed it. And that'll bring us to project number 4. I love this so much, and it's so simple. So I just used one of these Autumn Blessings little wooden pieces that you got from the Dollar Tree. I think that I got this last year. And I sanded off all of that. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint this white because I like my projects to be finished. And even though our boo part isn't going to be on the outside, it's going to be on the inside, I wanted it to be able to be fully and complete. So I'm going to use my little Cricut Joy, and I am going to measure off how big I need my bee to be and how big I need the 2 eyes to be. And I kind of marked off the sideways ghost that we're going to use. Now, doing this on my phone, I am not the best at it. I prefer to work on Design Space on my computer, but I have my Joy set up at my craft table, and I have the app on my phone to do it with, so we're going to go that route. So I've got my eyeballs cut out. I'm going to cut out my bee, and then I am going to paint the right side of that line that I drew in there white, because that's going to be the side of my ghost. And then we will paint the other side in black, and I'm using chalk paint on both. And we're just going to go ahead and get that all filled in and kind of watch my line. And I painted all the way up, you can see there on the white side, and I'm going to paint all the way up on the black side as well. And then I took truffle colored chalk paint and painted all around the edges to kind of give it a, you know, picture frame kind of look, and in contrast to the black and white. And then I'm just going to peel the stickers off, or the letter off. And if you don't have a Cricut, you could just use that Dollar Tree vinyl and make 2 eyeballs out of it with the black, and then just use any of the sticker letters for the bee. And that's all there is to this project, and it is so cute and simple, and I love it. And adding to my decor. And that'll bring us to our final project, project number 5. I love this one too. And it was super simple. So I grabbed one of the skeleton garlands from Dollar Tree, and they have these new glass containers. And I grabbed a rectangular one, and we're going to separate this skeleton from that garland, and I'm going to bend his little arms and sit him in a sitting position. And then I actually had to use 2 of those candles. Now I decided to scent mine, so I grabbed one of the scent oils from the Dollar Tree. So this is completely Dollar Tree project. And I put in one of the melted candles, and then used the wick that was in it for the candle part, the wick part. And then I added in that scent, and I melted down another candle and poured that in, and that made my candle part. Now, I wanted the wick to be far enough away from that skeleton that the skeleton's not going to melt. Wow, I'm having a little bit of trouble here. The skeleton's not going to melt while the candle is burning. But I thought it needed to look more ghastly, if you will. And so I took some black chalk paint and I painted the entire of that glass vessel. And then I thought it needed something just a little bit more. So I pulled out my Cricut Joy and Design Space on my phone and typed in "rest your bones," and I got the size I needed and the font I wanted. And you can see I'm kind of struggling with trying to get it to the right size. I finally figured out how to get it typed in there. And then I'm going to use the smart vinyl to cut this out. Now, something else that you'll notice that I think I forgot to say is I glued down his arms to the edge of the glass container. And I did that before I painted it. But you could totally just spray paint the glass container and then add on or glue on the arms after that's all done, however you want to do it. But I am now going to set that upright so you can see, and we're going to take off the excess vinyl, and then I am going to weed out all the little pieces. Now I've got this little weeding pen. I love it because it's just a teeny tiny little speck at the end for weeding, which is smaller than the weeding tool that comes from Cricut or the one that they carry at Dollar Tree. And I believe I bought this one on Temu. And I'm just going to use some clear contact paper as my transfer paper. And I will tell you, I struggle quite a bit trying to get these letters to get off of that carrier sheet. Carrier sheet, is that right? Because the smart vinyl sticks really well to its carrier sheet, and it's hard to get off because that contact paper isn't especially sticky. But what I do like is that when I put it on something that has been painted, like that glass container, then the clear contact paper doesn't rip my paint off as I'm sticking down my letters. So I finally got all that on and smoothed out, and I'm just going to stick it on, and this project is complete. So I just love this, and I think that the skeleton is plenty far away from the wick enough that it's not going to melt. And here is another look at all of today's projects. Let me know in the comments below which one was your favorite or which one you'd like to try to recreate. And if you do recreate one, please email me and let me see pictures of your creations. My email can be found in the description box below.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really did enjoy our time together. Now, since you stuck around until the end, here's your hint on next week. You will need one of the small terracotta pots and either some fall leaves or some feathers. But until then, make it a great day and happy Tuesday!